Hi, everybody. In this week's sessions, we talk about critical analysis and we talk a lot about the need to be able to write well. The first part of this briefing really talks about the ideas of critical analysis and what they might mean for you as future staff officers and indeed as future leaders, not only in the military, but for most of the rest of your life. I think that the readings do a really good job on this, and so I'm not trying to go into any great detail, but to give you an overview of what applied critical analysis might really be. In many, many ways, I think the last slide of this briefing is the most important one, and in fact that the last sentence of the last slide is the most important one. In that, Admiral Fallon, talking to a bunch of mid-grade officers, talks about the fact that they need to be subject matter experts in all that they do. And he closes with sort of a quiet thought. And that is, in my words at any rate, if you can't write well, you're doomed to failure, regardless of how good your thinking might be. So this is, I think, a reasonably good discussion as to what it is a critical thinker is all about. And the issue here is not that you are trying to become a know-it-all pain in the neck. The idea is that you are trying to raise important issues that are relevant to the problem that you're facing, and that you're trying to make sure that folks have thought through carefully all of the various problems that might occur. You don't want to be in a position of trying to figure out what the problems were after you've come up with a solution, because by then it's almost always too late. So this is an important function to be performed, and it's a function that needs to be performed up front. So I think that it's the case that you use critical thinking on a pretty much irregular basis. Most of the time, it's not necessary. Most of the time, you have a pretty good idea as to what it is you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it. Standard operating procedures help you. You have a certain amount of intuition. You have a certain amount of automatic response to issues. But there are many, many issues, especially within the Department of Defense, when if you do not use critical thinking, the probability of you coming up with logical conclusions are just extraordinarily small. So here are some of the ideas I promised to give you. These are a short list of fallacies that impede the ability to do critical thinking. And I'm sure that you have seen almost any of these at various times and places in your career, but it's important to remember them. It's important to remember that people will use these things almost all the time. In Washington today, one of the ones we see most often are ad hominem attacks. We simply attack the people because we hate the argument, and so we don't bother to figure out what the data actually mean. We simply don't like the person, therefore whatever he or she is saying can't possibly be right. So these are, I think, the antidotes to the logical fallacies. I think that they provide you a way to understand how it is that you can determine if you are actually engaged in a process of critical thinking effectively and whether you are doing it on a consistent basis. Admiral Fallon has an admonition to all of us as staff officers, and the admonition is, look, I'm a smart guy, I know I'm a smart guy, and you guys know I'm a smart guy, but it doesn't mean I know everything there is to know about all the problems in the world, and I certainly don't know as much as you are likely to know about any given issue. There's a chance I may have had experience in this that is way beyond whatever you could have developed in your decision paper or position paper or whatever it may have been. But the odds are against that. The odds are I won't know as much as you do about a subject, and you need to make sure that that is the case. And you need to make sure that as a result that you communicate well to me so that I can carry forward your arguments.